Okay, well, welcome everybody. I am here with Colleen,
Hi.
and we're
I said
excited.
I'm here.
Yeah,
I got myself here.
and we're excited today because we are with Chellie Kammermyer and April Walker. If you guys want to go ahead and say hi,
Hi.
and them as well as along with Cami Coté are the authors of Kid Reiki. Cami couldn't be with us today, but we are here to talk a lot about Kid Reiki and, all of the things that you might want to know, questions around Kid Reiki. And we're really excited. They're also colleagues and good friends. And so we're glad to have you guys here today.
We're thrilled
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So just a little bit about you guys. You're both licensed Reiki Master Teachers with the ICRT. April can be found. Let's see. Where's your stuff? April, where can people find you? What's your website?
aprilwalker.com.
Easy, easy peasy. Oh, there it is. It wasn't in blue. Sorry. And then Chellie can be found at Inner Compass Reiki, which is INNER Compass Reiki, and teaches alongside her husband, Mike Kammermyer, both of which are also licensed Reiki Master Teachers with the ICRT. So you can find all of their information about classes and things like that at their websites. And then you also teach Kid Reiki together, correct?
We do.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. How did this come about? How did Kid Reiki come about?
Well, I it sorry. I years ago at the ICRT Reiki retreat, there was a committee that was being formed to talk about kids and Reiki. And at that time, those of us who were on the committee had not yet actually taught any children. So our plan was to teach and get back together. And time went by, and there were a few laws put into place in Europe that kind of slowed things down, it felt like. And then all of a sudden, April and Cami and I were talking one day, and it just started flowing in. And it was like it was delayed for a reason. We don't even care anymore what that reason was or why, because it all flowed. And and 3 years later, here we are.
So, can you tell us, and April, I don't know if you have an additional perspective on that. We get that too, by the way, Chellie, with the animal Reiki, it was similar.
Yeah.
Yes, Chellie was just talking to me about my experience with kids and teaching child development. And then the conversation grew from there. And Cami came in and was like, how can I help? And it just blossomed. We thought it was going to be something completely different than it turned out to be. I can tell you that. The energy has a way of doing that, doesn't it? The
It does.
energy decides. Reiki decided. Yeah.
So just real quick about, because then I want to get into some of of the how-tos with it. So just real quick, your guys's curriculum class, Kid Reiki, is a class on how to teach kids Reiki. It's like a master class. It's its own energy. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's its own energy. Does it have its own symbol? Things like that, where you have an attunement to it, all of those kinds of things. If you can just give a little bit of a summary of kind of what this class, this energy, everything is about.
So yes, the energy does have its own symbol. And originally we were going to have it be a kids class to teach children, and it's turned into more of a master program for Reiki masters themselves with their own healing, and for families and for children and for teens. We kept thinking, okay, we're done. And then we were not done. It just kept growing and growing. And so it's a comprehensive training program with definitely with its own energy and own symbol.
So, just to add to that, what what happened is there's a training manual for adults for the Reiki masters to give them the tools to teach. But then there's also included in this class, we have teaching to children, level 1 and a level 2 class, and teaching to teens a level 1 and a level 2 class. So there's actually 4 manuals in this training.
Oh, wow. Well, so that's really interesting. What are some of the differences with that, teaching to children and teaching to teens?
Well, teaching to teens, I mean, well, first of all, I guess one of the things is when you're teaching to children, we ask that the parents be involved. By the time they become teens, we understand that a lot of teens don't want their parents watching every little thing that they're doing. And so it's a training that's very different for teenagers or preteens. It's basically ages 12 to 16.
Okay. And then at 16, it's then
They,
the regular Reiki
yeah, then
classes.
they can take an adult class.
So then so basically with the children, what's the earliest age essentially that you recommend for that, for learning Reiki?
Our general recommendation is going to be from 6 to 12, with the discernment of the Reiki master. Are they in a family that does Reiki, etc.? But that's just for a developmental general recommendation.
And then the preteen is 12 to 16.
Mhm.
Right. And then level 2, we're looking at 7 and 8 for just motor development to be able to draw the symbol.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So then, what if you are going to be doing some of the things like, or how do you know that your kid is ready? That's another thing. Like, are they asking the parents to take it? Do parents recommend that they take it? Things like that.
A conversation with the child. So if the parent sees this class is being offered, they can talk to their child about it and see if their child is in fact interested in doing that. It's really, we want to stay working always with the will of the child and where the child is, even in the activities that are offered or when you're teaching children, of course. Not every child wants to talk at that time or do that activity, for example.
And Chellie, what do you think about that?
Well, and then on top of that, if they're a child that is in a Reiki family, like maybe your daughter, like
Mhm.
she's probably already learned Reiki, but there's, if it's a family that's already includes Reiki, then we don't necessarily say that it's a hard and fast rule that they have to be 6.
Mhm.
They can be younger, or if they have siblings that are older that are doing Reiki, you might want to have like a 4-year-old or even a 2-year-old, just sort of get the attunement and the basics and then go from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like too, you can kind of, if it's younger, you can also there's going to be kids that are more inclined to it than other kids. And like with Luna, for example, she hasn't it's funny because I know that she's interested in all of it. She asks for Reiki every day. I'm kind of waiting for her to ask to have like a formal attunement or a formal class. And she hasn't quite shown an interest into that yet. Is that something that, would you, if you're talking to me about it as a parent, even outside of being a Reiki master, or maybe just being a Reiki master, is that something that you would be like, well, here's some ways to encourage that, or just wait? Like, what would you say to somebody like me?
Well, what I would say is, ask her, you
Yeah.
know, she may not even know it's an option.
That's right.
You could say, I've learned how to teach Reiki to kids. Are you interested in learning it? Do you think would you want to try it? Or, maybe she and a couple of her friends might be interested. You just don't know until you ask. And she may say no.
Yeah.
And then she may say yes. It could be like she might need to think about it for a little while.
Well, I do think that asking if any of their friends want to join them too could be another area of consent or getting them to have more enthusiasm with it. I've seen with my 3 grandkids, they definitely all engage with it, but the actual taking a structured class has been a different answer. So a lot of the Reiki that I've worked with them, like you say, a Reiki family where, they're around it all the time. We do a lot of different activities that are with Reiki, crafts that are with Reiki. They've all had their attunements with it, placements, ignitions. But it is kind of interesting whether or not they're wanting to do a formal class with it. And so I would think, like Luna, for instance, Robin, she's so social that I think for her, part of the fun of it would be for it to be like a Reiki day with her friends.
Absolutely. Community is so important. Can you imagine when we were all younger? Robin, you probably did, but having that community, that Reiki community from early on, that would have been so great.
It's really interesting because, she's around it every day. It's a part of her daily life. And I feel like I have asked her, but now that you both are saying that, I'm like, maybe I haven't actually asked her if she would like to take a class. I'm like, that's so stupid.
Well, well, I mean, that's not something to feel stupid about. That's something to be like, well, and the thing is, and maybe it's the way you ask. I mean, maybe it has to do with, do you want to learn Reiki? Not, do you want to have a class? Do you want to learn to be able to do Reiki for yourself or for, or for dad or grandma or somebody?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Also in parent-child relationships, maybe having friends there would encourage them to not have that same like, how kids don't always want to learn from their parents, but
yeah,
they do better learning from others. Just having friends there might encourage that
well,
as well.
yeah, there's always that.
Mm.
Yeah, making it a more social event. Because, like she says, Luna has had her other grandmother does Reiki also. So it's on all sides in her world. And you're right, maybe she hasn't thought of it as something specific. That one piece of advice is so good because it's so simple, but it's like, oh yeah, just ask them.
I think too, as parents, I don't know about you, but when I first got into Reiki, I mean, such great things happened that I was just so excited. And for a while, my kids were like, Mom, don't ask my friends about Reiki. Mom, just be,
Totally.
and so there's stages that kids go through as well, ages and stages of that, where, you were really cool in the beginning with that. And now please don't, please sit on your hands. Don't, don't offer to my friends when they're here. So I think our enthusiasm in balance with their interests is something to keep in mind. Because we get so excited, right? And we just want to share it with their kids and all of their friends. And it's their friends in their community, especially in that teenage stage.
Well, that's exactly what Robin used to say to me. Go, Mom, sit on your hands. Same thing, I'd be chasing her around, and she was always an athlete. So, I'd be in the benches, and if anybody got hurt, I can help. I'll give them Reiki. She's like, "Shh, don't even think about it."
Yeah.
Well, and my grandson came over here last year and to learn Reiki, but I waited for him to ask, and he brought 2 friends. So we had 3 teenagers here for 3 days, which was different for me to have all of them here. And but they loved it. But it was very interesting having having their friends and during some of the experiences and practice and stuff. It was fascinating to watch because kids are like they've got like this hyper connection that it doesn't like they all worked on Mike, whose hip had been bothering him a little bit, And when the three of them worked on him, it was like instantaneous. He was fine, like amazingly. Like I'd been doing Reiki on him for, you know, for a week or two, and it was getting better. But when these kids, they were just, he was like, it was fascinating what it felt like. So that's also just something to keep in mind, is that they are so connected already. They come in connected. These, so
That is so cool. And what I've found with some of the teens that I've taught, it really gives them like a unique identity. There's a self-confidence that I've seen in them when they're at that stage of trying to develop their identity. And the other thing with my oldest granddaughter is that it really helped her manage her empathy through those God. I mean, walking through the halls as a middle schooler, as an empathic person, she was just, it was like waves and waves of, you know, puberty emotions hitting her. And so really having Reiki to help manage that was huge for her.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, yeah, what are you seeing with some of these, even the younger kids, and well, or maybe even with the teachers of the other kids? Like, what are some of the results that are happening?
Oh, kids are, Reiki is meant to be developed, and kids come up with amazing things. They don't have the, oh no, you can't try that thing that adults do. They just go, oh, this is the idea. Here we go. We implement it. There it is. And they're done. Reiki on, bam, there it is. One of the kids in class went up to his mom and said, okay, I've got Reiki. Hands were placed on the shoulder, a 20-year shoulder injury, just didn't have pain anymore. It was just gone. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to go play. It was just instant and gone, and his attention was somewhere else after that. Didn't think a thing about it. There was no explanation needed. The mom sat there with her mouth open. But for the kids, they're like, well, yeah, we can do this. I mean, they just don't seem to have the limitations that I think sometimes adults place on themselves.
Yeah, all the unlearning that we have to do as adults.
I think that's very true.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and maybe fewer filters and layers covering their ability. I wonder also, what do you guys think about the idea that they're just the way they're raised with technology and invisible frequencies and energy sources are just normal to them?
I think that might be true. I think also they're already connected in a way that they get it. Just like most animals, they just sort of get it as well. And I think that we come in with that, we come in with intuition, we come in with these things, and then somehow they get covered up. And so if we can just keep that for them, and Reiki will help them do that, keep their authentic selves, keep their intuition, etc., right from early stages, how much better off they're going to be managing their life.
So what are some of the teaching tips that you guys are teaching? Because again, to clarify, the classes that you're teaching is teaching the teachers how to teach the class, right? That's what the manuals are, is how do you teach a kid's Reiki class, both younger age and then preteens, and then even probably discuss if they're 16 and older. But so you are actually in the classes, the students themselves are teaching. So what are some of the things that are a part of that you're teaching them about teaching? Long way to say that short sentence.
Lots of teaching in there.
Yeah.
Well, I would say probably the very most important thing is that the teacher works on healing their own inner child,
Mm.
Oh,
so that they don't have the expectations of what a child is going to do, and they do not have ideas of how the results are going to be. And so working with healing your own inner child and all of those layers of life, it creates a new connection with children that you may not have even realized you needed. And so that was the surprise part of how this all came about and what happened with all of us with our own healing. And then and so from there, then the next piece is to know that, okay, I'm going to get the statistics wrong, but April can correct me. That we learn through play. There's been studies done that it takes like 90 times repetitions to learn something new. But if you do it while playing, you learn it in what, 7, 8, 9 times? I don't know. I know I don't have the numbers exactly right, but it was like 10 times more that you had to learn something. And that works with adults too.
Go figure.
Yeah. And so learning that what we've done with our training is we incorporate play, a lot of play into the class. And so having children understand that it's not all very serious and, this is what happens and you have to sit down and you have to behave a certain way in class. Like everybody is allowed to be themselves, their own authentic self. If they don't want to join, they don't want to share, that's okay. And then if they do want to share, if they want to talk, I mean, in one of my first classes that I was teaching kids, they when we start any kind of ICRT class, we do this introductions, right? Something you like, where are you from, whatever else, why are you taking the class, and something you love about yourself. That's always one of the first questions, right? You go around the circle and people get this deer in the headlights look. Like, oh, I don't know if there's anything I love about myself, because they're adults and they have all those layers. Well, with kids, it's more like, I love that I love pink, and I love that I love sparkles, and I love that I love fairies, and I love that I love to play basketball, and I love, and they go on and on and on and on. So, that's also fascinating, like how kids are already connected, and they don't have the things that we've told we've told each other or told ourselves or our parents told us, that we don't we have just like that connection. And so just allowing them to have fun is so important. It's not serious.
So kind of moving that authoritarian teaching style out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I love that because, thinking about, I always think that teachers are just saints for being able to have the patience that they do, to be able to teach a full classroom full of kids. And so so that kind of sounds like, when you're teaching children, that is a part of it, that it isn't necessarily so structured. For somebody that might get frustrated that the curriculum is not necessarily A, B, and C when it comes to children, and like, oh, you got to learn, things like that. If I'm being completely honest and transparent, this class helps you with that, but then it also is teaching you how to teach them in a less, not to be so A plus B equals C style.
Yeah, it helps heal. I think that all Reiki does this, but it helps heal that which might trigger us to always need to be in full control of where the conversations are going. And it helps us to flow within the interest of the children and the different ways that we present the material. So if we're getting triggered because it's not A plus B equals C, we get to look at that. Where does that come from? Is that my authentic self? You know, what programs do I have that maybe it's a wonderful time to let go of?
Boy, do I agree with that. I even watched that with my own grandkids, and the difference, the shift in the generational style of parenting. And just from my own style that had more of that authoritarian parenting style to, the next level, next evolution of parenting that I see with my kids, with their kids. And it does make me check it all the time. Like I have to stop and think, okay, wait, how can this be done differently? Or how can this evolve from, do it my way, because I said so.
And what are the ultimate goals in having the Reiki class? The ultimate goals are to share this wonderful energy with them, to give them something that's going to help them with their nervous system, help them study, help them be balanced, help them sleep. I mean, so ultimately that's the goal. And if they're taking off a direction and their interest wasn't in our outline, it's time for us to change our outline.
Interesting. Well, in April, you're a child development, like that's your background, right? Is in child development.
Yeah.
And so just wondering about how people who don't have that as a background, do they have to have it? Is that a requirement for teaching children, the things
No.
like those?
Yeah, I wouldn't want somebody to feel like they had to be a child development expert to teach Reiki classes. This is sharing light frequency with children and families and adults. And I think it helps to know a little bit. I think in general, for anybody who has children or grandchildren, just to understand certain concepts. I mean, coming in, shame patterns start around age 2. So don't touch, oh, that broke, and then the parent's upset, the child is upset, etc. Or a typical one here in the US is we want our children to share, learn good manners and share it. And at age 2, the brain development isn't there to support sharing. So we have a lot of frustration for not. If we understood that that's just not typical brain development at that age, then maybe we have this opportunity to not have frustration even enter the picture, or to create shame patterns intentionally or not. So I think that knowing a little bit about it can be really helpful, but having to be an expert, no. Teach the class, enjoy yourself, let them play. Reiki, honestly, will come in and do what needs to be done and help if the desire is there. So I mean, you really can't mess it up. Just looking at your own triggers and just knowing that going with the flow is a good idea. Here's all kinds of curriculum. Here's all kinds of ideas. You're off and running.
So what are some of the activities that are beneficial in teaching Reiki, or that for kids?
So what we did is we came up with, you may not remember this. Oh, you might. You might be old enough to remember these books called Choose Your Own Adventure.
Mhm.
Do you remember those? And what would you would, for those that don't know, what it was there would be, you'd start a book and you'd get to page 2, and either Billy went to the zoo, so you go to page 17, or he went to the forest and it was page 27. I don't know. But there were options and the book changed every time. And so that's what we came up with. Was we came up with 5 different styles of activities. And so so in our curriculum, when we're teaching, we have like, okay, at this point, you're going to want something from section A, which is, the welcome section. So like showing kids how to welcome each other, how to get comfortable with being there. And then we have breathing exercises to kind of calm them down. And then we have other exercises like how to burn off extra energy. And and then activities to make something to take home so they have something to remember from the class. And then there's the important group, which is how to fill in time when all of a sudden your agenda, which you thought was going to take 4 hours, is now at 2.5, and you have an hour and a half to kill. And you're like, what are we doing here? These kids have already gone through everything on my list. And so we have 5 different sections of activities. So one of the activities for burning off energy and for filling time was one that in one of my classes and the reason we know this is because I taught like 8 little ones, and they were done way earlier than what I had anticipated. And so I was like, what am I going to do? And so all of a sudden I had this burst of inspiration, which, Reiki helped me. And I sent them outside and said, go play Reiki freeze tag. And they were like, how do you play Reiki freeze tag? And I'm like, you tell me the rules when you come back and I'll write them down. And so they went out there and they all stood there like in a circle and came up with the rules, and then they played, and that gave me a few minutes to figure out, what are we going to do with plan B? Like, how am I going to fill up some more time? And it was fascinating. They came up with their own rules and they played and they had a great time.
So did
Are those
you
the
then?
rules? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, same question. Go ahead.
Are those the rules that are currently in the manual, or is the suggestion that they make up their own rules?
The suggestion is they make up their own rules.
Interesting.
So every time the new group makes up their own rules?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So that must be so fun.
It is fun. And, we have other activities like, doing Reiki on food, like fruit or orange juice, and, not doing it on some, and then going back and forth, tasting it and experimenting. And it's always fascinating. They always pick the right one that has had Reiki on it. Either if it's like, like we'll have a bowl of fruit that's got Reiki in it and a bowl of fruit that doesn't, purchased at the same time. They always pick out the right one. April has an experiment that she has always done, which is doing Reiki on orange juice on one cup and then not the other. And you have to keep them far enough apart that they don't pick up like residual Reiki. And then when they do it, they can tell the difference.
And taste.
Yeah, and smell, taste, even almost the way it looks. So those are some activities. Play-Doh is a big thing that we recommend, because it keeps that kinetic connection, keeping their hands busy helps their brain. So
how long are the classes usually?
about 4 hours.
Oh, okay. And for both age groups?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the parents are there too. Oh, go ahead, April.
I was just going to say the teen activities are slightly different.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah. So there's a beach ball experience. Teens and adults love this. You start out a story talking about a Reiki story, and then you throw the beach ball and somebody catches it and they add to the story, and etc. And it turns out really funny, and it's amazing how creative teens can be, and adults, how amazing the stories can be, and everybody laughs at the end. It's really fun. And so it's just a beach ball, and you just, you're tossing it to the next person. 2 or 3 people put their hands up for it, and it just makes it fun.
That would be fun in an adult class.
It is fun. You should have seen William. He was jumping up to grab it at the retreat in New York. He jumped up to grab the ball. Like he was sitting there and all of a sudden it came flying by him and he was like, and he pulled it. So he could be part of the story. It was adorable.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's such a storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really? What a fun idea.
And they just, I mean, like April was saying, like it, and the story's different every time. And that's one of the things that we really love about this is that a child can take these classes over and over again. Like if they want to, they don't have to have the, like, you know, 3 kids take the class and then they want their friends to take the class. It's not boring for them. They can all come back and take the class again.
Well, what are the parents doing of the younger kids while the kids are in activities?
They're in the activities with us. They're drawing their hands. They're looking what the Reiki look like. They're involved and they're there. They don't have to participate in everything, but they often do. I think it brings out adults' inner children, truly. We've just seen participation right along with. It's pretty neat. And then they go home with their child and they have that opportunity, or their grandchild, or caregiving, to share what they learned in class and start sharing that energy right away.
Well, I can hear how that would be very healing. It truly, the way you describe the development of the course is very similar to animal Reiki, where it did the same thing, teaching us what the course was and what it was about and what it wasn't. Same thing. We thought, we had A plus B plus C, equals C, and the animal Reiki went, well, no, not actually,
Just
not
kidding.
how it works. And then the biggest piece is the healing of self. So that I can hear in the way you're describing it, how that engagement, just even letting go of the control of how to play Reiki freeze tag and what the story is, like giving it over to them.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it works a lot for us to come to the place where we're holding space for the children of today. Children are really coming in with a lot of knowing, and this is an opportunity for us to really hold space for them in a new way.
Yeah. Well, and do you see that with the kids coming in? Of course, you're obviously having parents that are open to these ways and practices. And do the parents typically have Reiki also when they bring their kids, or?
Some have and some haven't, at least for me. Some have come in and just said, my friend said this was really fun. And okay, but they get that base with the children from the beginning. And it's really conducive to, family and community Reiki. It really is, because they're getting that. They can ask questions at the time. And I find that parents have fun and they let the energy flow more, and you can see when they sort of shift, because at first they're coming in and they're going to know the A, B, and C part, and then they just start to flow, and that sense of wonderment comes in for them, and they feel comfortable and they play. Even Chelle's playing with her grandkids with the group. It's nice. I mean, think about it, that sense of wonderment and play for us as adults. Isn't it nice to kind of let your hair down and be relaxed and just receive and send the energy?
Do you teach Reiki? I think you might have said this, but just to clarify, you teach Reiki 1 and then Reiki 2, and it's 4 hour over 2 days, 4 hours each day over 2 days.
We kind of recommend that they have a little bit of time in between, and that's sort of up to the parent, the child, the teacher. But we don't recommend like a 2-day class back to back.
That makes sense. And what about for the preteens too? Is that the same?
They could do it back to back if they wanted, but we kind of sort of feel like they need some time to play with it and use it. And then we don't have a recommended time between classes, but we don't necessarily think that they need to be done back to back.
And then in the Reiki 2 class, are you teaching the, 3 Sui symbols, just like a regular Reiki class?
That's a
Okay.
good question. That's a really good question, Robin. No, there is a symbol that came through for this. It's a single symbol.
Gotcha.
And that's used in much the same way as animal Reiki, I think. Similar in how that is progressed through the different levels.
Okay. So is that the same symbol then you learn as the teacher, you learn in your class?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and easy, for kids, because I was thinking about the distance symbol. I was like, how does that, the first two might be okay, but that distance symbol, I don't know how an 8-year-old is going to learn that distance symbol. I can barely learn, or when I was originally, it's like, how long
Right.
did it take to memorize that?
Oh, yes. No, it's one energy, one symbol in the same way. And it's a very loving, divine symbol. It's beautiful.
So when you're teaching the teaching class, back to the teaching, how many, what's the structure of the class for the teachers? Like with what you guys are actually teaching?
So we teach it in a 3-day. It's a master class. There's 4 ignitions. There's 4 ignitions. There's 1 placement. There are 4 or 5 experiences that build on each other to help with all of our inner child healing. And then there's also activities. We do the same activities that we do with kids. We send Play-Doh and we
Absolutely.
you know, they're all the things that we would do in a children's class. We try to do that in the adult class too.
Do we learn how to play freeze tag?
Uh-huh.
Make our own rules.
Yeah.
Snowballs.
Oh, that is really fun then.
Yeah. It's fun.
It is definitely fun.
So if somebody, what if somebody, it's like just with animal Reiki, you can also use your existing Reiki to use on animals, the classes for those who are called to take it. What about some, techniques or things that you have found for people that may be called to teach kids Sui Reiki, or just, their existing Reiki? Is there any advice or tips and tricks that you would have for that?
Well, I think it's great to introduce Reiki no matter what. And those tips and tricks, I guess it would just be like you had said about drawing the distance symbol, when the child is ready for that and not being perfection about it at all. And then offering different learning styles and how to do that. So for me, a kinesthetic learner, I'm out there on the beach drawing with a stick in the sand, or coloring or water painting, or just offering some different ways to get familiar with it if you're going to be doing the traditional style.
It makes sense. And making it playful.
Yes. Yes.
And
Oh, making it playful.
and also, like, if no matter who's teaching it or what style they're teaching, the history is like probably the least interesting to children.
Yeah.
And so making it short, like, when I had a globe that I was going to show the kids, like, oh, this is where we are in California, and this is where Japan is, and see how far away it is. And of course, one of the kids was like, oh yeah, that's where they make Nintendo. I'm going to go there.
Always.
I'm like, well, yeah,
Way ahead of us.
yeah,
They
they're
all
just,
want to go to Japan.
yeah. So, I mean, so the interesting thing is like how they, like, yep, some guy got it and then he shared it with other people. That's pretty much all they really care about.
Yeah.
And, when we, and so just knowing that they, if they're having fun, no matter what you're teaching them, I think is critical. I think, and teaching, and also teaching some self-calming skills. Like April has one that has that she's shown us, and which she's going to do. And just learning, knowing that there's ways that they can calm themselves down, because no matter what style of Reiki they've learned, anybody, Reiki for self-healing is a key component.
Absolutely.
Well, and what I keep hearing you say as well is that control word, which as adults, can be one of the things that we need to also work on a little bit. So it just sounds like, regardless, I mean, just like when you're teaching anything, especially to the younger ones, that control of allowing Reiki to come in and help you and support you in releasing that level of control that we might like to try to hold on to.
And I think there's safety things, there's safe, of course, yeah. But the play might be messy for some children. It might not be. You just expectation too, right? Here's the information, sharing Reiki, sharing love, sharing light. If you can just stay in that thing, come back and go, okay, the goal is to share love, to share light. Reiki is that. So what does it look like? Oh, now we're over here. Oh, now we're over here. Okay, well, that'll clean. I'll wash that later. Just knowing that, and just coming back to, no matter what, you really can't mess it up, right? Reiki will do what Reiki does. And really, no matter what style you're teaching, no matter what style you're coming from, just get in there and do it. That's part of the hardest part, is just to get started, and do it. If you're thinking of teaching children, absolutely get started. Start with your children, your grandchildren, or a friend's child, and get a little practice in, or have some thought behind it, and then implement it and just watch. It'll unfold, it'll bloom, I promise you.
Do you guys teach any of the, like, how to attract the students
Yeah.
in the class too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. We've got a whole section on that. A whole chapter on how promoting, and ideas for flyers, and for information, and emails, and etc.
Word of mouth is probably the best way to get this out, but when you're teaching, but one of the things is like at, after school activities, like lots of schools probably wouldn't let you promote it at the school, like, regular K through 12 school, but a lot of the after school activities might, like gymnastics or swimming or that kind of thing. So that we recommend, reaching out to those types of places.
And the kids love it. They share with their friends, and then they want to do a class. I mean, it sort of self promotes in that way. So the kids want to come in, they talk about it, and now they want their cousin to come. They want their cousins to be included in that.
And then they can do Reiki on each other.
Mm.
And then, also we have, one of the things is like the safety of where you teach. That's a thing, like, paying attention to, like making sure that there's a, where, unless, if it's your own grandchildren and you're teaching in your home, that's one thing. But if you're teaching children that are not your children or grandchildren, then we recommend, we have a whole list of things like, making sure that there's no poisons that anybody can reach. And, if you, like at my office in California, I had to like go through the office because it's for adults, and make sure that the Drano was moved up high so a child couldn't get into it. So there's, looking at it from that point of view, where you're going to teach is important. Making sure that a child can't burn themselves because the water is so hot. You know,
Or
yeah. And, making sure that there's a place for the kids to play, whether if you can keep them inside. I mean, if it's snowing or raining, and, I guess if they live in Portland, they're used to the rain, but, you know, but kids, they need a place to be able to move around, and you need to be able to clean it up afterwards. So there's a lot of considerations for that too that you also want to keep in mind. A fire extinguisher.
And then not having things out, like you have those beautiful bowls behind you, Chellie. If you're having younger children around, they're going to be attracted to and want to go over there, and they're going to want to play that. So is that okay? And then, maybe putting it up higher, out of the way if that's not something that you want them anywhere near. Because children are naturally curious. We as adults are like, ooh, looking at the bowl, right? Love to play that. So just, having the discernment to know what you're putting away and it isn't out for them to see, because they're going to be curious and they're going to want to play with that.
Oh, yeah, and you don't want to end up in a position of being a disciplinarian the whole time.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Um,
Not at all.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
like that's the opposite.
the opposite of what we want.
Yeah.
And then also like knowing ahead of time if any child has an allergy, like there's things about that you have to keep in mind. So there's a lot of layers of, things to consider when you're going to teach to children. And, like, I mean, some of the stuff we pay attention to as teachers of adults, but adults are usually able to speak up for themselves. Like, I have peanut allergies. Does anybody have anything with peanuts? Like, I can't come if that's, so you have to, just make sure that you've asked all those questions.
That's another benefit of having the parents there as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I was wondering that. Do you generally have people bring snacks, provide snack, or do you have, encourage people to provide the snacks, and then you do have all the food allergy stuff?
So we'll often have the fruit there for our experiments, but we can talk to the parents. That's part of the intake suggestions that we have. Talking to each parent, where I'm having this. Is that okay for everybody? This is what we're serving, or that what we have to snack on. Is that okay for everybody? On the intake form, it says, are there any allergy sensitivities, etc. Yeah.
I was
Okay,
thinking about that with the Play-Doh because it's
me too.
made of flour,
That's
so
right. You have
yeah.
a celiac child. We have in the program accommodated a recipe that has that isn't made from wheat flour,
Yeah.
that is in there. But you have to think about all kinds of things like that. Perfume, for example, or essential oils in the Play-Doh. Because lavender might be lovely, but there are people who are sensitive to lavender as well. So there's things like that in your planning to think about that, honestly, you might not have if you haven't known somebody that's had that sensitivity.
Yeah, I think so. All those things are part of what you teach in the class, the things to think about.
Mhm.
Yes. It's nice to have had at least heard it. And then when you
Mhm.
go to creative class, it's designed to make it really easy for you.
Yeah, because I think a lot of those things, particularly if, like for us, we have so many food allergies that like our holiday family meals are, this person can eat this can't eat that. These can never be anywhere in any of it. That we think about that, but maybe people without those food allergy issues wouldn't even be aware to think about that.
That's right. So if we're doing an orange juice
Mm.
experiment and this child gets apple juice, that works. We already have,
Yeah.
and they're already included. It's just automatic. Your juice. How did
Mhm.
your juice taste? Can you smell a difference, right? To accommodate that. So that's something, that's helpful to have thought about ahead of time.
What about special needs kids? Is that like, would you recommend that they are in a unique class or would they be in the general classes?
I love to be as inclusive as is humanly possible in community, but if you have a big, huge stairway to your home and somebody needs a wheelchair, that might not be something that's easy to do. You might find a different location, for example, based on who's coming. That's what I would do.
And so that would be something that you would probably ask in advance too, of,
Right.
are there special accommodations that I need to make?
Yes,
Things
yes.
like that.
And it's beautiful to be inclusive. It really
Mm.
is, to have community. And so if we are doing any of the activities, including every child as much as possible, or making those changes where possible.
Mhm.
One of our students has child that is on the autism spectrum, and she has taught classes to several autistic children, and the kids loved it. Like it was so amazing. She said, she was trying to teach them and give them breaks, and they're like, we don't need a break. We need to keep going. So they were very excited by it. So it's fascinating to watch with the different abilities.
Well, I've seen that in working with children with autism myself, just as a practitioner, and the and also working with their parent, because what I've seen happen with Reiki is that they learn how to meet in a whole other level of consciousness that is actually meeting the child where the child is also. So it's not always the tools to get the child to meet where, the parents are, or that it actually gives them that ability to communicate differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the preteens? Is there any classroom thoughts? I mean, I know it wouldn't be safety considerations, but I was just wondering if there's anything with that. It seems like they'd be able to meet in kind of, any same space as an adult, but just curious.
Just honoring where they are, and asking more questions. So I have these journals. Would you like to color the front cover of this for your Reiki journey? I haven't had anybody say no. Having different craft supplies, paints, pens. They're into colored pens quite a bit, and dot journals and things like that. So you can look that up. It's really fun. It's creative. They're helping to be a part of the creation of the class.
Hmm. I could see that too for the older groups
Mhm.
being asked, because there's that need for establishing that independence. And
A
so
lot
that,
of options, right?
yeah, rather than just being told.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
love
their
that.
own inner authority,
That inner
Right.
really getting them started on inner authority,
I mean,
their own inner belief system.
yes, and trusting themselves,
Yes.
right?
And
And
I would wonder too, with some of it, with some of the things that in the preteen age um, that sometimes having them do some of those creative things that maybe they're not, they're kind of moving out of those types of things, like you say, coloring or pens or whatever, that they get to do that still because they're still kids.
right. And they can make it as sophisticated as they like. So
I
yeah.
still love coloring.
Yeah,
I do.
exactly.
Yes.
Luna's like, "Do you want to color?" I'm like, "Yes." "Hey, do you want to color?" Please.
And we have
Always.
mandalas as options, and then we have some blank pages as options. So they have options. They can just take which they like and make their own. And it's nice to have those questions where they ask, "Oh, I feel creative about this today," or "This is appealing to me right now," and they can take those pages that they like.
And so I'm assuming, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to
Jen.
say also with the preteens and the early teenagers, we also talk a lot about gratitude in the class, like, and how to have an attitude of gratitude and ways to, we create a book for them to start thinking about things that they're grateful for. And things they're grateful for could be completely different than, somebody who's in their 50s or 60s. But it's good for them to start, it's one of the Reiki ideals, being grateful. So it's a good thing we talk about that.
So I would think then that most of the activities that you're teaching people how to teach are, they don't require a lot of engagement with you as the teacher in the actual project in the moment. So the kids are able to do them on their own without you, supervising. I mean, you can even hear my language.
They can take that curriculum with them and repeat some of those things at home. Oh,
Okay.
it's really fun if they happen to come with grandma and then they get to show the orange juice to mom or dad after, and it's something for them to share how they had a good time in the class and some things that they learned. So
Yeah, with the kids and being able to taste the difference.
oh yeah, when I first started doing that, the parents, I only poured it for the kids. The parents weren't as involved, and then COVID happened. And it wasn't as popular to take the same drink as your kid, But they would smell it, and then the parents would smell it, and then they'd question if they were really smelling a difference, right? And then the child would taste theirs, and then the parent would taste it, and the parent's mouth would fall just because they could see a difference. So they may not have ever really thought about that. If they haven't come from a background of knowing energy work at all, this was something that they could see, smell, knew had shifted with just a few minutes. I mean, kids are like Reiki on, Reiki go, bam, it's changed. I mean, they don't even do it as long and they can still have that to talk with their families about. So and the activities of making up a story, even for a teen, that's really fun to do later with your own family. You have family game night, that's a fun family game.
Is there
Yeah.
what about sound and music? Do you have that as a part of it?
Absolutely, they can do sounds with Reiki and different, even a singing bowl or a tuning fork, or they can include some of that. If you have some of that and you're a Reiki teacher or you have an office where you're teaching with, you have those metal sound bowls, you can bring one and show that as an example of frequency and change that you can feel and not only hear, but feel. And so they can feel it on their hand as they go around. What does it feel like? And then what does the Reiki feel like? So that would be a fun one, Robin.
Well, you had talked about the skills to be able to calm themselves. And then Chellie, you'd mentioned that we might be doing some of that. So I'm curious about that part of it. And teaching kids. And I would imagine it's probably different for the youngins that it is for the older kids as far as, or is it the same? I guess it could be the same for everybody. I don't know.
So one that's really easy and fun to do is, bringing your hands to heart center and just bring in Reiki on and just taking a moment and just feeling that energy between the palms. And then taking one of your hands, having Reiki flow through the whole body and breathing. So we're going to inhale when the hand goes up the fingers and exhale as it goes down. So if we start on the side of your thumb, so inhaling, sending Reiki and inhaling, and then get to the top of the thumb as you go down, you're exhaling, and then coming up to that next finger, inhaling and exhaling at your own pace. Everybody's lung capacity is different. Inhaling and exhaling, next finger. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling and waiting for everybody to be done. And then maybe placing that hand at the heart center and the other hand on the stomach and inhaling and exhaling and let that Reiki flow. So I think that that feels really good, whether you're younger or older. The younger kids might not follow through with the after part of it, the other hand on their stomach, but often they do. And it just feels really good. It gives you a moment to just sort of center. It's a good transition energy. So that's one example.
And what about kids that are really lost in their emotions, maybe? Is that something that you can see if they'd be willing to do, or is there something else that can bring them, not asking for an experience, but what can I do here, guys?
Would you like to do some Reiki breathing? Would you like me to do that with you? Yes, no. Where, where are they with that? If they've had some exposure before the storm, then they have the skill set. Even if they said no to you, you can walk, at least with my son, I walked back in, I like saw that he was doing it and I backed right away from the door. Yes, he's there, so quickly backing. Yeah, yes, indeed. Um, so again, we're showing the opportunity for them to practice a couple of these things, and then then it's theirs, and they can use it if they'd like to. And they'll usually tell you, yes, I want you to do it with me. I mean, how often, especially these young kids, they want you to watch them do it too. How many times? Watch me do it. Watch me do it again. Watch me do it again. And it's a wonderful opportunity. We always think we have so much time, but it goes so quickly. I know when they're younger, you think it's going to be that way forever, right? And then all of a sudden, now you have a grandchild. It's like it went by fast. So, just offering that if they're having, and there's some techniques in the program that work specifically with emotions and healing emotions, allowing that acknowledgement of where they are and that expression of where they are without it being who they are. It's something that they're experiencing right now.
Mhm.
And then using Reiki, of course, makes it all the more easy to actually work with that. It helps so much.
I
Oh, go ahead, Chellie.
I was just going to say, I had a student who's, well, she was my student, and then she brought her boys for Kids Reiki. And the youngest son was like annoyed about the whole experience. He didn't want to be there. And, but she had kind of drug him, and it took him a little bit, and then he warmed up to it. But he was mad because it was during a baseball tournament that thought he was going to make help his team win, and he wasn't there. But fast forward, I don't know, maybe 5 years, and she was talking to him about he had a big test coming up, probably the SATs. And he said, and she said, "Are you nervous?" And he said, "No, I'm not nervous." And she's, "Really?" He said, "No, I just do Reiki on the test. I do Reiki on me." And she was like, "Wait, what? I didn't think you did Reiki anymore." And he said, "Just because I don't tell you about it doesn't mean I don't do it." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting to remember for teenagers. Like, just because they don't talk to their parents about it doesn't mean that it's not there and they're not using it." So,
Right.
just something to keep in mind. When you think that your children aren't listening, they are.
They're always listening.
They're always listening. Exactly.
They act like they're not listening, and then they're listening to everything.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, even the exercise you just had us do with breathing up the finger and down the finger, or exhaling, breathing in up the finger and then exhaling down the finger. I'm amazed at how quickly, how good that felt on my hand also. Like I really felt a huge difference in my physically with my hand.
I think too, it occupies a certain overthinking part of our brain because it's busy with this part. And then if you're focused on that breath and Reiki together, it's really powerful.
Not the overthinking brain.
But
That never happens to me.
Yeah, nor I, Robin, I'm sure, not to you.
Yeah. That's why we need the tools to get to that inner child, right?
Yeah. Yeah, at least for me, I really needed the tools.
And actually, uh, one of the things that we haven't talked about that I wanted to make sure everybody knew about is there was a law that was enacted in Europe called the GDPR, which is Global Data Protection Regulation. And so we want to make sure, no matter whether you take our program or somebody else's, that you understand that there isn't a law like this, as far as I know, in the United States yet. It is over in Europe, but you never know who's going to be taking a class. And so, especially if you're teaching online. So, one of the things to know is that in Europe, with this law, you cannot save any child's information on your website or in your database with if they're under 16. So that was kind of is something that so what our workaround that we came up with was that we register the parents
Mm.
and that we have a phone call to get the information so that you can create certificates for children, because you can save the adult's information, but you cannot save a child. So we just, as a matter of course, are saying that we recommend that for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, as you know, it's as a licensed teacher, we're required to have be GDPR compliant.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it is a good idea for everyone anyway,
Yeah,
just, as a general rule.
right. And so our way was either, send an email or a phone call to get the information.
Mm-hmm.
So you do teach this online too, then? I was going to
Mhm,
be okay. I meant to ask that earlier and I forgot. So,
mhm.
um, so you teach this class, but what about teaching kids online?
Some people are pulling it off really well.
Okay.
Times have changed.
Yeah.
We'd like them to be outside and playing too, but we're also really thankful to have the technology. Um, so if that's how something is offered for whatever particular reason, then yes, you can teach it online.
I would wonder if it would be more successful in the older age group than the younger age group, or are you seeing that both is happening?
I don't remember what some of the other teachers that were talking about that, but we should check back in with them and see what they did with that. I haven't taught any online to the children themselves yet, so um, that one will take follow-up to answer that question. But somebody else, one of our other students has, and then I don't know I didn't follow up with it after that, but she was teaching online. And that was important for her and the group of students she was working with. So, I mean, it certainly can be done. It's, yeah.
Well,
I
it
can
would
see.
be
Oh,
great
sorry. Go ahead.
for, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
It
go
would
ahead,
be
Chellie.
great. It would be great for families.
Yeah.
Like if you have cousins or, you want kids to take it together as cousins or, and they live across the country. I think it depends. It's always depends on the kids.
Yeah.
And
If
then if
they're-
you're doing that, making sure they have enough time to have their supplies be mailed to them.
Okay. Yeah, I could see with the preteens, especially because so many of them took online classes over COVID, that they might be able to, you know, have the duration of it at least. But I would wonder about the younger kids, just also because it sounds fun as a teacher to be in person,
Yeah.
Oh,
do the
sure.
games with them and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, although so many kids I mean, they're online all the time. So for them, it's such a normal part of life.
Oh my gosh, if I have any technology issues, I ask my son, and if I
Yeah.
don't, I ask my sister's grandson. They seem to know the button behind the button. It's
Yeah.
just like, I don't, but they do. And what it would have taken me hours of research. Oh yeah, Aunt April, here you go.
Yeah. Robin's daughter's already using ChatGPT.
Oh
She'll
my,
pick up my phone and she wanted to see the makeup for her Halloween costume for the Descendants, and she picks up my phone. She goes, "Grandma, do you have ChatGPT on your phone?" Picked it up, just talked right into it. Give me a picture of the Descendants. That was it, and it did. And then you also think about them and how they just, like, one of the things that she did that I thought was really fascinating too is she wanted to know what tornadoes were. So I went onto YouTube and showed her a bunch of different videos, maybe even TikTok of tornadoes. She actually, at 7, knew how to identify which ones were real and which ones were image generated.
wow.
Like, she
Yeah.
would say, "Oh, that one's not real." And I couldn't tell. I could when she said it, but just off the top. So I do think kids can do probably online, just as the teacher, you would then have to adapt the activities and probably have, would you think, preparation in advance so that the kids have at home the things, that they want for the activities.
Yeah, much like teaching our standard Reiki class.
Yeah,
And, I mean, really, um, it's fun to be in person and running around
yeah.
playing freestyle, but there are other modifications that we've done. Like I said, we've done energetic snowballs, and then the person catches it, and then they throw it, they announce who they're going to throw it to. And so they gather the energy, and then maybe I say Robin, and I gather the energy and I throw you the ball, right?
Then you catch it.
Yeah. So I mean, there's adaptations that you can make. So I wouldn't want to have us exclude that at all, because I mean, times have changed. I'd prefer children be outside a lot though, and with, than on the screen all the time. But like I said, for something like this, it can be done.
Yeah, where it expands your outreach.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
I know.
maybe kids who wouldn't have access otherwise.
And
Yeah,
teaching and having 5 people from 5 different countries in our classes and things like
yeah,
what
exactly.
has done and what that has taught us, right? Yeah.
Well, and you think of kids being on video games, that's one of the things that they talk about is they have friends around the world.
Yes, they do. And they know
Mhm.
things about other parts of the world because of their friends online that they're talking to as they play. My son is just like, Mom, don't, because I play so badly. I'm like, well, where is this? And I'm talking, and he's like, no, Mom. Like, I'm just not very fast at it. It wasn't something that I, grew up with or knew much about, but my son has friends all over the world based on these games. So yeah, different times.
Mm. Well, so how often do you teach the teacher class? Tell us about the kind of the structure and how people find you and um, that part of the discussion, because people will be looking.
Well, we have 4 classes scheduled in 2025. One in March online. So kidreiki.love is the name of our website. We have one in March that is online. First weekend of March. April, are you looking up the date?
March 7th, 8th, and 9th
Thank
online.
you. And then we're doing one in person at the Northeast Reiki Retreat, the 3 days prior to the retreat. So that's the end of April. It's April 30th or April 29th, 30th, and May 1st, right?
That's New York.
New York.
That's New York. And then 3 days before the ICRT retreat at Peace Place, we're teaching
Oh, in Sedona.
in Sedona.
Nice.
And then in December, we're teaching the first weekend of December.
It's funny. I'm looking. But getting the 3 of our schedules, together for this. I mean, it's really actually fun to co-teach. I really enjoyed that. I think that co-teaching also is a great way for people to start when they start teaching Kid Reiki. because it offers that support and different ideas and community, even at the teacher level. So something to think about, that we're trying to coordinate. So it's December 5th, 6th, and 7th. We would make, all three of us could make the commitment this many times. I know that you guys have co-taught and trying to get your schedules coordinated is something else, but those are what's are already posted, and we may offer more, but
Yeah,
again,
those are the ones that we are committed to.
yeah.
Those are 2025. What did you just say that I was, oh, it'll pop back in. I lost what I was going to ask you.
Co-teaching?
Co-teaching community.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask. So if you have an in-person class, if you have somebody assisting you that isn't necessarily a co-teacher, because there's a difference between if somebody's helping you that's co-teaching and somebody's helping you that is an assistant.
Sure.
Do you typically recommend that?
It depends. You know, there are some people that are experts in certain things that might be really helpful coming in, adding something if they're teaching something specific. So if we're doing our class at Pinecrest Lake near me, I might have someone there that's a lifeguard and that's teaching some kayaking. So we kayak to the back of the lake. And there we are on the granite rock having that team class, you know. That might be very much a part of it, but not necessarily a Kid Reiki teacher. For example, I'm just throwing out a brainstorming example. That's the kind of thing I would do nearby, but that they are teaching the safety part, they are in charge of teaching the basic kayaking, etc. You know, that's a wonderful combination to look at, for example. There might be other skill sets that someone has that you're combining it with.
Mhm. Well, I was wondering because with parents there, then they may assist, but at the same time, because I know with animal Reiki, if we're in person, we definitely like to have at least an assistant who isn't necessarily a co-teacher. So to me, kind of defining the difference of are they an assistant, are they co-teaching, and having an assistant that's helping track all the people at the
Sure. I
same
mean,
time, but not necessarily teaching.
that's that's one of the benefits, Robin. If I was teaching your group, you would be there in a community. This is another beautiful part of this energy, is working more with communities, and we're all a team. We're a
Yeah.
team. So I might be the Kid Reiki teacher, but we also have community. Mom's over there pouring the orange juice for the experiment, right? And it's a beautiful thing. Also connecting other parents that may not have known each other, or, maybe they brought their whole group. So there's a lot of benefits to that.
And we do recommend, I mean, one of the things that we do clearly recommend is that the parents are there. So they're kind of they're helping with their own child, keeping an eye on food allergies and, if they need to go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, like those kind of things, that they're able to help them with that, where it doesn't take away from your time as the teacher.
Yeah, it's not really a drop-off program for the younger children. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you clarify that
Yeah.
in advance so they know? Because I can imagine that you would get some people that would come in and just think you're handling everything and they just watch. So you are actually letting the parents know in advance that you're inviting their participation.
Yes, and it's an invite. Hey,
Yeah.
Colleen, would you like to pour the orange juice for us while I'm getting this ready?
Mhm.
It works really well, actually.
And easily. Well, like you say,
If
Reiki's
there's a
on the
parent that
job.
is that standoffish, then I'm probably not inviting as much participation from that parent.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
the will is also honored in the adults.
Well, there you go, right? Because
Mhm.
people come in at all different levels of what's going on in their life.
That's right.
And so also just honoring that.
Well, and if
But
the kid's interested, but they don't know anything about it, they may need some, and they're going to do it for their kid, but they may need some time to settle in.
Well, and yes, and the other thing is that as if a parent has not, or whoever has brought the child has not been attuned to Reiki, they get a Kid Reiki attunement.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
So, and so what happens is then, because then it can be reciprocal, like the parent can give the child Reiki. I mean, it's not like they can give certificates. It's not like they're a Reiki practitioner, and we make that very clear. But if a parent has not ever had Reiki, then they're learning while their child is learning. They're going to absorb all that. And so they can then do Reiki with their children, that can create more community within their family.
So of course, the practical question of, are you charging for both the parent and the child?
Yes.
Okay. So
But
each
we are,
one has a class fee?
no, just the opposite.
Oh, okay. So it's one fee for both the parent and
Yes.
for the child and the parent. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, gosh.
Let's yeah, this is awesome. Why don't we also tell people how they find you individually as well? So
Okay.
it's kidreiki.love for the Kid Reiki classes, but then you also are individual teachers, practitioners, all the things. So why don't you go ahead? And we'll have all of this in the description, of course, as usual. But why don't you also say it for those that are just able to listen currently and not able to check the notes?
Yeah, and all the things that you teach and all that. Tell us about you.
April, you go first.
Oh, well, I teach all of the Holy Fire 3 Reiki classes, Reiki drumming, crystal healing, muscle testing, pendulum work, in addition to Kid Reiki. aprilwalker.com is how you can reach out. April@aprilwalker.com if you want to email. And Heart Rhythm Reiki is Cami's contact. Heartrhythmreiki.com. And Chellie.
And I'm at Inner Compass Reiki. It's INNER Compass Reiki. I teach all the Holy Fire classes. I teach sound healing. I teach crystal Reiki. I teach, Reiki drumming and sound bowls and crystal Reiki and Kid Reiki.
And how about your locations?
Oh, so I'm in Lincoln City, Oregon, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, Danville. We go back and forth between the two. And Cami's in Missoula, Montana. She teaches online and in person, and
And often in Washington.
off in Washington, Spokane, and
April, where are you at?
So I teach in the Yosemite, California, Yosemite Mountain area, and also in Modesto, California. And also recently I've been teaching classes in near Greenville, South Carolina. I have family there, and what a wonderful combo it's been to go visit everybody and teach there.
Well, that's exciting. I didn't know that about you.
It's really lovely. Lovely.
I have so much family up in your area.
I know. I remember you'd mentioned that.
Yeah.
Probably really close to me too, where you were talking about. We probably have 8 minutes from there. So
Really?
that's really cool.
Oh, that's so interesting.
We'll have to do tea.
We'll have to find out.
And then do you all have socials as well?
Yes. Like Facebook pages.
Yeah, where's your social at?
That's a good question, Robin.
Are you under April Walker? Well, you could probably find it at your websites,
Under
right?
April Walker, and Instagram is under April Walkers with an S.
Okay.
and everything of mine is Inner Compass. I have Facebook and Instagram, all of that.
And then I know Cami's is under Heart Rhythm Reiki.
Mhm,
as well.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, one thing,
Oh, yeah.
it just occurred to me is this is going to air on December 9th, right? Or somewhere around there. This is the time of year to start looking for supplies for kids' classes.
That's
The everything is on sale from Christmas through January. So if you need, child-proof scissors or crayons or yeah, everything's on sale. And so paper, if you want to use like a butcher paper to draw an outline of a child, you can get that, everything. They have all that stuff on sale. So this is a good time of year to do that.
That's really good advice. Probably this time of year and back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 2 times a year to stock up.
the January sales, really, you cannot beat the prices on even crayons. So
Oh, good to know. I wouldn't even have thought of that.
sleuth shopping.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you all. Of course, Colleen and I can be found at ReikiLifestyle.com. We do have our Next Step Reiki and Explore the 12 Heavens registration is open until January 13th or something like that. You can find more about that on Reiki Lifestyle Academy. And we teach Reiki classes and animal Reiki classes. And so, yeah, you can find us there. And then our socials is Reiki Lifestyle and Robin Benelli Reiki. So, well, April and Chellie, thank you so much. This has been super fun and enlightening. Also, so that's really great. And just I'm gonna ask Luna.
Thank you for the
So funny.
So funny.
Talk to her about it. Oh yeah. Oh,
Just
so
ask.
yeah, just ask. That's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Hi,
you.
everybody.